So, philosophy means the love of wisdom. Okay. But philosophers have different ideas about what wisdom is and what it could possibly mean to love wisdom. I love pizza. I love my dogs. But the way that I love pizza is not the same as my love for my dogs. I wouldn't take my pizza for a walk in the park or try to eat my dogs, yet I say that I love them both. So, what could it mean to love wisdom? Here are some quotes by different philosophers about philosophy. Perhaps at least one or more of these will resonate with you. The feeling of wonder is the mark of the philosopher. Philosophy has no other beginning than this. The beginning of philosophy is the recognition of the conflict between opinions. Philosophical decisions are nothing but the reflections of common life, methodized and corrected. Philosophy is the unusually stubborn attempt to think clearly. Philosophy has its origin and value in an attempt to give a reasonable account of our own personal attitude toward the more serious business of life. The proper method of philosophy consists in clearly conceiving insoluble problems in all their insolubility and then in simply contemplating them. Philosophy is a battle against the bewitchment of our intelligence by means of language. Philosophy is the endeavor to discover by systematic reflection the ultimate nature of things. The main concern of philosophy is to question and understand very common ideas that all of us use every day without thinking about them. In his final chapter of The Problems of Philosophy, Russell argues that although philosophy does not enhance our external material well-being, it can greatly enhance our inner mental lives. This is what he means when he refers to the short-sightedness of practical men, or practical persons, who only recognize material needs but are oblivious to the necessity of inner needs. This enriching of our inner mental lives does not necessarily mean that we gain more concrete facts or knowledge about the world through philosophy, although in some cases it might enable us to appreciate them more deeply and fully. According to Russell, as soon as definite knowledge concerning any subject becomes possible, this subject ceases to be called philosophy and becomes a separate science. Some of the questions he mentions in this essay are both important and timeless. Does the universe have any unity of plan or purpose, or is it a chance combination of particles and atoms? Is consciousness somehow fundamental to the universe, or is it a random accident on a speck of dirt, which is our planet, which will eventually be destroyed? Is there any such thing, really, as good or evil? Or are these just words and ideas that we made up because they have relevance to our experiences? Almost all such philosophical questions, including the biggest one of them all, what is the meaning of life, remain undecided, and some may utterly defy any attempt at a final resolution. But this very uncertainty is also what enables us to continue to ask thoughtful questions about life and the universe. And it's this willingness to question things that ultimately liberates us from the prejudices of common sense, our own cultural backgrounds, and personal habits of thinking. For Russell, an important value of philosophy is that it frees us from our tendency to interpret everything in terms of ourselves. By looking beyond ourselves and trying to examine life and the world as they are, rather than just focusing on how they affect us, we increase our capacities for embracing possibilities that we might have previously dismissed. This is what it really means to expand your horizons. Philosophy for Russell was not just a glorified self-help or self-improvement regimen. It is a way of thinking and being, and, most importantly, growing. By growing beyond your own self-imposed limitations. And for those of you wondering, these are scenes toward the end of a movie called The Truman Show, starring Jim Carrey, where we see a man who quite literally encounters the edge of his known universe and then dares to step beyond it. I highly recommend this movie to those of you who haven't seen it yet. Kant also writes that enlightenment is a person's emergence from one's self-imposed immaturity, which is the inability to use one's understanding without guidance from some kind of authority or control mechanism. According to Kant, one of the most important qualities necessary for free, independent thinking is courage. In fact, he attributes the general ignorance of people to laziness and cowardice. He writes, "It is so easy to be immature. If I have a book to serve as my understanding, a pastor to serve as my conscience, a physician to determine my diet for me, and so on, I need not exert myself at all. I need not think. If I only can pay, others will readily undertake the irksome work for me. Consequently, only a few have succeeded by cultivating their own minds in freeing themselves from immaturity and pursuing a secure course." There is much more to this important essay by one of the greatest philosophers of all time. As you read through the remainder, you should pay close attention to how exactly Kant makes a distinction between public and private use of philosophical reasoning. Here, he is neither advocating anarchy nor freedom of speech in the way that we might understand it today. In fact, even a casual glance through the writings of Kant reveals that he had a special concern for issues involving moral and ethical duties. The nature of this very real tension between personal freedoms and compliance or obedience to authority is an impressively complex one, and to understand it better, we must look at the branch of ethics that is concerned with political philosophy.